of that evidence that right now the jury is never going to hear, and the judge decided that remains inadmissible. All right, let me bring in defense attorney Eric Guster to get his take. This is not the only pieces, these are not the only pieces of evidence that are going to be inadmissible. Yes. There's a big chunk, and actually Monday, 5 o'clock, we're going to show you all the things that the jury will never see. How significant is it that they're not going to see this kind of evidence in this trial?
Well, the prosecution wants to paint MacNeill as a bad person and talk about his forgeries and the different lies that he told, because they want the jury to know that this man lies and he may lie his way out of this. But the judge has to make sure that he doesn't do anything that breaks the law and breaks the rules of evidence. Because if evidence is presented against MacNeill that is too prejudicial and not really fair to him, then it will be overturned.
But if they have to prove that this guy is lying, and he could be lying about other things, why wouldn't that be important evidence to get in there, especially when it comes to his family?
Well, just because he said something about his family before does not necessarily mean that he killed his wife. So the judge has to make sure that he protects this man's constitutional rights, because a judge's nightmare is having a case overturned. And that's what this judge does not want to do.
Exactly. There is a lot of evidence this jury will never see, which is why we have an entire hour dedicated to that evidence, because you look at all of it and you're saying, what? Wait, this could change their mind. That could be a game changer.
But that's a typical trial. You have, for example, if you have a theft case, you can't talk about the person's speeding tickets before. Yeah. Because they broke the law before, that doesn't mean that they actually stole this merchandise. So the same rules apply in a murder case, although it's very emotional. A lady is dead, a lady is deceased, and people want this person to get convicted for the most part. But the judge has a duty to make sure he has a fair trial.
All right, let's look ahead. Tuesday is going to be a big day where we may hear 4 inmates, up to 4 inmates, that are going to say, Martin MacNeill said to me he killed his wife.
Yes.
Is that going to be significant?
It is going to be significant.
Even though it's an inmate?
Inmates telling or snitching or telling what they know, that can harm the prosecution a little bit, because it sometimes seems like they're grasping for straws. And if they cut deals for these inmates to cut their sentences, these people would have a reason to lie. And the judge will give certain instructions for the jury to consider, such as witness bias or prejudice. And if you're cutting sentences of defendants in jail, of prisoners, that's definite bias.
And let's not forget, they're prisoners. So let's talk about their credibility, right? I mean, you'd have a hard time saying that this is going to be like, you know, a nun giving testimony. Exactly. But let's talk, you know, we've had a lot of our viewers tweeting us, you've been asking us questions, and one of them is, what about Dr. Perper? You may recognize him from the Anna Nicole Smith trial. And one of our viewers was asking, do you think the celebrity of this guy affects the jury positively or negatively? What do you think about that?
Typically, celebrity does impact the jury positively with that celebrity's testimony, because people tend to believe the people that they know. And if they've seen this man talk on television before or testify in trials, they feel they know him. It's similar to your weatherman. I mean, if your weatherman says it's going to rain tonight but it's sunny outside, you're going to believe that person because you trust them.
Right, that's a good analogy. But listen, this is happening in Utah. That was a California case. What's the likelihood that these jurors have heard of Dr. Perper before?
This case is in Utah, and the whole nation knows about this case. And that case was internationally known.
That's a good point. This medical testimony, you and I were sitting here saying, you know, this is what medical examiners do, right? They use words that all of us are like, wow, you know, wish I went to med school. Do you think that these jurors are getting a little bored and that they're drowning out some of the really important testimony, which is that Michelle MacNeill was drowned?
Unfortunately, with medical examiners, it's typically boring testimony because it's all about science, and most people are not science-based, so they kind of tune it out. So it's very important for the defense to hone in on their issues, and the prosecution as well. And they will probably
be loud, make your point, make your point. Yes. All right, so thank you so much, Eric Guster, for being with us, and let's not forget.